Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. Today's story is a juicy one, no pun intended. You'll understand why in a minute. I'm Kristin, and I'm joined by my co-host, Big Ron. Ron, you have another nickname, Rombo.
Yeah, just nicknames from the past. Believe me. Some guys call me that in college, Big Ron. And then when Rambo came out years ago, a buddy of mine started calling me Rombo. He still does, by the way.
That's amazing.
We've been on at professional calls, and he goes, "What do you think, Rombo?" And I know people are going, "What? Who?" Anyway.
Yep. I love it. I know. I was Crazy K. You know, I used to be a little
Crazy K.
Just more like wild, you know.
I get
Not
that.
like mentally insane. Oh, goodness.
All right, let's get into it.
All right, let's get into it. All right, so like our tagline, where leadership meets entertainment, this episode has both leadership and entertainment value. And if you've ever wondered what happens when a six-pack meets a six-figure steroid bill, you're in for a ride. And we are talking about the Liver King. He's also known as Brian Johnson. I know my husband definitely followed him on Instagram. He's known as the man, the myth, the meat eater. And now he has a Netflix documentary coming out any day now.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to be that favorable. So the Liver King drops this week, as Kristin said, and it's got everything. Deception, millions of dollars, raw meat, and leadership failure at every turn. Sounds like a great Friday night.
Oh, my goodness. I will be binging that because it's very interesting. So the origin story, who is the Liver King? A lot of people have not ever heard of him. So Brian Johnson was not born eating raw bull testicles. He was a kid from Texas, raised by a single mom. We call those Rocky Mountain oysters over here, just so you know. What do you guys call them out there?
Mountain oysters.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Just
Not
no
too far
Rocky
off.
to it.
Yeah, no Rocky. And get this, he used to get bullied. And for people that don't know who he is, go look him up. Really huge, muscular, jacked guy with a big old beard. He used to get bullied and like full on beat up on the playground, bullied.
Yeah, I can relate to that, but we won't get into my woes. His classmates called him smaller than life, which is a funny nickname.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he had major self-confidence issues, but eventually he found weights and he started pumping iron, and it changed everything. But he didn't start with a dumbbell in one hand and cow liver in the other. He was a pharmacist first.
It's so wild to find the backstory. I didn't know that about him until I started doing research for this episode. And that's really the wild part. He had a science degree. He wasn't just winging this stuff. He married a dentist. They were raising two boys. He started getting obsessed with ancestral health after his kids were continuously sick. And he said modern medicine wasn't cutting it. And I personally agree.
Yeah. So he goes full primal. Barefoot, shirtless, liver-eating caveman. He starts crafting his brand around what he calls the 9 ancestral tenets. Things like sleep, eat, move, shield, fight, bond, sun, cold, and, you can just repeat. And by the way, Kristin, I got into him through social media. When you see him, he's so massive and entertaining. He's ripped. And of course, he's usually holding a big piece of meat like it's like a car accident. You have to look.
I know. It is tough to turn away from him. He's very engaging. And this is where it gets crazy. He launches ancestral supplements. So it's organ-based. We all know organ meats are very healthy for you. Organ-based capsules. So think powdered liver, heart, spleen. Sounds kind of gross to most. It's probably, I know that when the Thanksgiving turkey comes out, that generally gets thrown in the garbage by most people. But people wanted results, and his results, the shredded body that he, had on display, it made people believe.
Yeah. His social media exploded from 2021 to 2022. He grew to millions of followers. He was everywhere: YouTube, TikTok, podcast. Even big names like Logan Paul interviewed him.
Yeah. And here's a stat. So by mid-2022, his businesses were making over $100 million annually. And that's from multiple brands. So he had the Ancestral Supplements, Heart and Soil, The Fittest, and others. He was basically printing money at this point.
Yeah. And the kicker, he swore up and down he wasn't on steroids. Yeah. So people would ask him directly all the time, interviews, are you natural? And he'd say, I've never touched the stuff. So, of course, people watch these videos and he's so massive and they start thinking this ancestral supplements there's something to it. And they took it hook, line, and sinker. I tried to work in a good pun there, but it just couldn't.
Like our last episode.
Yeah.
You were pun master.
I was rolling
they'll come
it
to
in
you,
there.
Ron.
They will.
Yeah, they'll come. So the spoiler alert here is that he was spending $11,000 a month on performance enhancing drugs, growth hormones, testosterone, IGF-1, peptides, the whole pharmacy.
Yeah. So who drops the bomb? A fitness YouTuber named Derek. More plates, more dates was his title. He gets his hands on leaked emails from Brian Johnson to a bodybuilding coach, where Johnson lays out his entire steroid stack. Busted.
Did Derek go into hiding after this?
Maybe.
That's wow. That's a big bomb to drop there. These weren't vague. He was on 7 different substances, tracking injections, dosages, even blood work. He literally detailed how he was hiding the usage while marketing his products as natural. It almost sounds like a setup, to be honest. Why would you put all of that in one email?
You do wonder. This is all alleged, by the way, because Kristin don't want to get sued.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. The internet exploded. Fitness forums, Reddit, Instagram, everyone was talking about how they were misled. Customers were furious, as you can imagine. Yeah. Some had bought thousands of dollars in supplements, thinking they were buying the secret to natural transformation. They probably were not seeing results in the mirror, but at least it motivated them.
Yeah, they're like, why don't I have pecs like the Liver King? What's happening here? Why don't I have bulging veins? One of the most chilling parts is he knew it was a lie, and so did his team. And that's what most people don't know. Business partners, insiders, they helped him keep up the facade. Why? Because the money was rolling in. Money is usually the why behind most things.
I'm thinking he should run for Congress next. I mean, he's already got the foundation.
Yeah, hey, exactly. He's a pro.
No, let's call it what it is. This was a cult of personality. We've seen it over and over. Liver King wasn't just selling supplements. He was selling himself. He created a brand that relied 100% on trust and visual proof. And when that trust collapsed, so did everything else. And Kristin, I've been doing a health shake. I'm going to be posting a video soon. I've been doing it for 20 years, and I've got it down to what I think is a fine art. But I had some people telling me like, oh, you should buy, I won't name the supplements, but it's basically protein powder. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, I just do protein powder, some lemon juice, and something else, And I said, that's great, but I'm getting I'm putting in fresh spinach and all these fresh fruits. Uh-huh. They're like, you don't need those. You can use the chemical. I said, if you want to trust something in a lab over fresh fruits and vegetables,
right.
I use a little bit of protein powder. Don't get me wrong, but you can't tell me that's better than natural.
Right.
No way.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, we all have our things that work for us. And, going back to the leadership lesson, it really hits hard. I want to break it down a little bit is authenticity matters. You can sell the bull testicles if you want. But if people find out you're lying, they're not going to forgive you. It's really tough to go back once you've been outed. And this ego over ethics, Johnson got addicted to the image. And for those who don't know what he looks like, go look him up. He's like a whole smaller than life, no more. He's like a bigger than life image for sure. And that image fed his bank account. And so he kept feeding the lie. And you've probably heard this before. Silence is complicity. His team enabled this. No whistleblowers, no accountability. Leadership isn't just what you do, it's what you allow around you.
It's exactly right. And the marketing world is filled with mistruths and exaggerations and all those things. But I do need someone, if you're listening, I didn't know, can you buy bull testicles?
Well, I know you can get them at restaurants. I'm sure you can get them at butchers.
I just wondered. I'm sorry, I had a moment there, folks.
I'm sure you can buy them at butchers.
See how Kristin always has an answer. That's no problem. Bull testicles, sure.
Yeah, hey, Rocky Mountain oysters all day long. There's literally a testicle festival in Idaho that my friends go to every year.
Okay, I'll never be able to get that out of my mind now. This is so true.
Fried, sauteed, all that.
Yeah, this is so true about authenticity. Even in the coaching space, if I'm coaching someone on fitness and I'm always eating and not working out, I think that's a little hypocritical. And I've even thought about on days I've missed a workout, it bothers me because I'm pressing. It depends what the need is in coaching, but some people, I coach them and hold them accountable on their workout or diet or whatever. Right. So authenticity is something that I believe is a dying philosophy or art or fundamental. And we got to get back to being authentic. Everything breeds it, from the social media to politics to whatever. And it's missing. It's really missing.
It really is. And it's interesting. I went to a friend's dinner last night, and these are people that I'm politically engaged with. And we were talking deep discussions. And one of them was all about authenticity. And I was talking about how it's really difficult for me personally, once I find out somebody is even just a portion of what they've told me is a lie or a mistruth, or they've put up a facade, right? It's very, very difficult for me ever to go back and remain open to that friendship. It's I pivot away, and it's very off-putting. And some people put up with more than others, and I just have a very low tolerance for that. But what do you think, Ron, that it's a way that we protect ourselves as human beings when we sense authenticity or lack of?
I think it comes out of insecurity. If you're talking about a lack of authenticity, we create, he was bullied as a kid, and I dealt with a lot of that. I remember, Kristin, when the bullying was pretty bad, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. There were no martial arts studios, no boxing gyms. So I remember watching, and you couldn't record something. So if Bruce Lee was on, or a Muhammad Ali fight, I would be right in front of the TV trying my best to mimic what they were doing, which I could not do, but I would really try. So I absolutely believe, and we won't get into this, but my martial arts, I didn't go to a regular weekend. I went deep into martial arts, and it occupied my life for years. And I really do believe that at some point I was still fighting those people, and I had to mature and grow out of that and realize the fight was over at some point. But I'm not trying to justify Brian or the Liver King, but I can see the root of it. Now, at some point you got to be an adult and go, okay, do I rip people off? Or am I authentic? And it leads me into one of my favorite, this is not a movie. I told Kristin when she's assessing my personality with movies, I love like Netflix shows. And I got to tell you, the show on Elizabeth Holmes, if you don't remember who she was, she came up with this diabetic, you could just pierce your finger and take a little drop of blood and do all these tests, which is impossible. But she sold it, and even they were in Walgreens at one point, these machines, and all they did was just took the blood and sent it to a real lab. But she was able, and I use her, Kristin, in some of the coaching because she understood a lower tone voice is proven to get more respect. So if you listen to her speak when she was younger versus older, she would speak in a very low voice. She started dressing like Steve Jobs with the black, she would wear the turtlenecks. And she developed a whole persona, and she obviously understood how to manipulate people, influence people. She had millions upon millions of investments on a machine that didn't exist. And the one thing that'll never be answered to me is, I've always wondered, did she think with all this money that they would invent it before it? It's like check kiting. You know what I mean? Like,
yes. I do.
Would she get it invented before time runs out, or
before it all catches up?
Or these people just scam artists? I don't know the answer to that. But
I know.
we know that Liver King knew better. He knew that nothing was going to happen.
And then there's arguments out there like, was he really scamming people? If it was these products were real, right? And they did have health benefits, but taking them is not going to make you look like him, right? So in a sense, legally, I think there can be an argument there. And we'll dive into this a little bit more. How about this? So Brian first responds. This is all outed. There's a big, the big bomb drops. He posts this super, I guess, moody video. It's dark. He's shirtless, emotional. And he says that he did everything for men suffering from depression. He says that he wanted to help people.
Yeah. And the problem with that, and of course, to all of his customers and followers, was there was no real accountability. He never really admits flat out that he lied. Yeah. Tries to reframe it as good intentions gone sideways. But you don't spend $11K a month and lie to millions accidentally. And I am wondering about this Netflix special, if he's going to actually be a guest. In other words, is he going to come on and talk, or is this about him?
He is. Yeah, no, I see it's there's an interview aspect to it.
Well, I'm just saying maybe he will, admit
we'll see.
in the series.
Yeah, because from what I saw, it was a huge deflection. And like you said, no real accountability or ownership there. If they're in a, talking about a leadership moment, if you screw up, and we all do, you have to own it. Clearly, directly, no smoke, no mirrors, no crying in your home gym. You have to own it.
Yeah, it's true. All right. Now, fast forward to this week, Netflix drops the documentary Untold, The Liver King. Word is it goes deep. Former employees are going to be interviewed. There's family interviews and never seen before email footage. So I guess the curtain's going to be pulled back on the Liver King.
Yeah, it will. And this is where we bring it full circle. He built a myth, and now he's being dissected in a docuseries, which is the exact thing that he mocked, mainstream storytelling. And is this what's going to define his legacy?
Yeah, and Chris and I were already wondering if there's going to be lawsuits from people. How many civil suits may result.
I know. And there's also the psychological side. He wasn't just charismatic, he was manipulative. He created this exclusive language, primal, subprimal, ancestral tenets. He framed modern living as weakness. I will agree with some of that.
I was getting ready to say, let's be honest. He probably was. He had some initiative, of course, creativity, of course, some historical analysis. So, it's like
He's a smart dude.
Well, it's like every other thing. There's always probably some good in the middle. Like you said, some of those supplements may actually be good.
Yeah.
But it's just once the brand gets exposed, there's not much you can do. So
right.
It's textbook cult leader behavior, U.S. versus them, or us versus them. I'm used to saying U.S. from my federal days.
Oh, I know.
Us versus them, rituals, rigid ideology, and people bought in.
Yeah.
Guys were literally showing up to meet him with raw liver and Tupperware, hoping to get it signed. Hey, you haven't lived until you get your liver signed.
Oh, wow. That's something. My husband did not get that on board, thankfully. It's when leadership turns into worship, you're in a dangerous territory, and we see it all the time.
Yeah, so let's ask the question. We've heard all of the fraud and everything else.
Yeah.
Can trust be rebuilt? And that's an age-old question, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, only with total transparency, to your point earlier, real apologies, third-party accountability, a step away from the spotlight. I really feel like without that, no.
Yeah, but that's the problem. Leaders like this, they don't want to step back. They want redemption and the platform, and that's not how it works. And if you look back in time, it's almost getting old to me, but, Bill Clinton, no matter what good he did, even if he had apologized sincerely, his name is always attached to Monica Lewinsky, and there's always going to be jokes. So as they used to say, there's one thing to forgive, another to forget. So he's going to be linked to this. He might be able to figure out something good that he could do for humanity to offset this. But otherwise, this is going to be his reputation. And I'm anxious to see what happens to his products. Do they continue on the markets? I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't help but think about, I've heard from numerous folks that one of Trump's favorite things to do when people visit the White House is to show them the Lewinsky room, which I guess now the Trump administration, they're using it for merch, the Trump hats and all the Trump stuff. But he loves to show people the Lewinsky room, which is just right off
I can see
the
him
Oval
calling
Office.
it that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right. So we have some final takeaways here. Let's land this plane. Leadership built on lies will collapse. It's kind of like, Ron, we've talked about when someone really like bloats up their resume. Eventually you're going to be outed. There's going to be a collapse there because of so many reasons. But charisma without character is a ticking time bomb. And if you have to hide your behavior to keep your brand alive, you're not leading, you're conning.
Yeah, and there's a great saying, it's charisma will get you there, but character will keep you.
Love it.
And it's very, very true. All right. A little more takeaways to the leaders listening. Be bold, be unique, but be honest. Your reputation is your currency. And unlike money, you get one shot. And we all have to think about that. I made small mistakes as Academy Director or things that didn't destroy me, but I was certainly aware that the wrong situation and I'm ruined. And it's just the truth. And this is a side note, but if you can get a mentor, and that's why I always say you need mentors from different age groups, but you get an older mentor, they're going to caution you and say, you guard that position you have, like, you've got the keys of the kingdom, you got to hang on to it. And if you can get people like that and you remind yourself how fortunate you are to be in that position, it will help you in those times because it is tempting. Kristin, come on, you get thousands of views and, it's tempting to be what people want you to be.
Right.
So authenticity can be a battle, and that's why we have to get our values established right out of the gate.
Yeah. And, to your point, I wish more people understood that there is so much crossover. So I just want to explain one thing. This is from like social media, and it really enforces authenticity. There are so many influencers, political influencers in the space that I'm in. And what I like to do is I like to go look at how many followers they have and then how many mutual followers we have. And for instance, one of my friends has 3 million followers and we're in the same space. I have 125,000. We only have 1,200 mutual followers. Well, what that tells me is my authenticity has attracted a certain grouping of people, and his news-based has attracted a certain grouping of people, right? So like you can be yourself and put things out there that reflect you 100%. And there will be people that will be intrigued by that. So you don't have to be somebody else to draw an audience.
Yeah. And folks, no one's perfect, but here would be an example is Kristin is a conservative influencer if she was actually not conservative. That's what authenticity is.
Right.
Imagine she finds out there's this opening and she can make some bank or get some followers. So she pretends so that's what we really mean. No one's perfect, but authenticity is you're doing what you believe in. Like, my coaching or my speaking, if I didn't think I could impact people, I seriously, folks, would go just get a job. I wouldn't do it. So you got to believe in what you're doing, but you also got to be real in presenting what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And, just to piggyback off of that, I get people that reach out, hey, we're going to send you this and this free, all of this stuff. If you do an Instagram story for us. I'm like, all right, is it made in the USA? No, it's made in China. Okay, thank you for reaching out. I'm not interested, right? Like there's certain things, if you stay true to your audience and true to yourself, there's something to be said for that versus being a grifter and just doing whatever rolls in the dough.
Yes, absolutely. We certainly want to thank the Testicle Festival for sponsoring this episode.
Oh my gosh. I've never been, and I think it would be really fun. It's right at the border of where Oregon meets Idaho.
I saved my best work at the end, folks. So if you're one of the few people that stuck with us, you get the best.
Oh my goodness. I'm into
All right.
it.
All right, everybody. Be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.